guys, it's your boy, Barca Boy 103. Today we're going to be reviewing the 2023-2024 season for Barcelona. A lot of downs, and a lot of downs. Very rarely were there any ups in this season. We're going to discuss and review everything. We're going to do player ratings for the season, overall team performance rating of the season, manager rating of the season. We're going to have some awards as well. Best player, worst player, best Spanish player, best moment, worst moment. We're going to kind of recap the whole entire season, then end it off, of course, by giving it an overall grade. Was it a success or was it a failure? You probably already know the answer to that, but stay tuned for all the hype and all the circus around the video. Before we get into it, make sure you guys smash that like button down below. This is very painful to make, put a lot of effort in this video as well, so please smash the likes. Let's try to get the 200 likes in this video. It'd be very much appreciated. And also, if you're new, make sure you subscribe down below if you haven't already, and let's get into it. During the past season, Barcelona competed in 4 competitions, not winning a single one. In La Liga, we did finish 2nd place, but losing the league by more than 10 points to Real Madrid. In the Copa del Rey, we got knocked out in the quarterfinals to Athletic Club at the San Mamés 4-2 after leading the game at one point 2-1. We were eliminated in the Champions League in the quarterfinals against PSG after being up in the tie 4-2 at one point, again another capitulation. And finally, in the Spanish Super Cup, we did lose 4-1 in the final to Real Madrid. Let's now get into the player ratings of the season. I'm going to be rating every single first team player based on how they played, and of course having a little implication on expectation for the level that I do expect for them to play as well. We'll also be ranking some of the B team players that have, significant impact on the first team as well. Let's get straight into it. We're going to go, of course, in numerical order. First up, number 1 is Marc-Andre Ter Stegen. And for me, I'm giving Ter Stegen a 6 out of 10 for the overall of the season. Very inconsistent. There again, we talked about this when there's a lot of hatred going around for Ter Stegen. You can make a 10-minute compilation this season of all his mistakes, but you can also make a 10-minute compilation for all his brilliant saves. Very inconsistent. The fact that he was still in the running for the Zamora Trophy on the final day of the season says enough for, I think. You can't really give him a poor season from last year. I believe he was my player of the season last season, so a massive drop off for him, which again I think is in retrospect to his rating and to his performance this season. But I want to highlight, of course, that 3-4 month spell when he was out injured, how much we missed him. Of course, when he's come back, he brought some sort of stability. But yes, again, in the big moments this season where shots that could have been saved weren't saved. But I do again highlight some of his big saves and big moments this season as well. So I think a 6 out of 10 average for him. He probably played to the level I did expect for him. I don't think he was absolutely outrageous. I don't think he's absolutely poor. So I think right smack in the middle for the overall. Again, did miss about 3 or 4 months due to injury as well. So that was, of course, considered as well. But I think a 6 out of 10 is a fair rating for Ter Stegen this season, of course, being average. Next up, number 2 is João Cancelo, and I've given Cancelo a 7 out of 10 for the overall of the season. Again, recency bias is going to play a big effect. I know a lot of you guys are going to disagree with this rating, but you have to look at the entire course of the season from August until today. And I think, Cancelo had a fantastic first 7 to 8 months. People were glazing over him, how much of a good signing he was, coming in on loan, finally have somewhat of a natural fullback. We have a decent fullback since Dani Alves. Yes, I understand when the push came to shove, the crunch moment of the season, that last month or month and a half of the season, he was absolutely willful, and that has played a part in his rating. Because if he continued on his form from March until May, you'd be looking at an 8, maybe even a 9. I have to highlight, from August until March, he was one of, if not the most consistent player in the team. Not only performing week in, week out, but playing week in, week out. And again, that last month wasn't too great. Again, the game against PSG, where he kind of cost us defensively. Madrid Clasico, the Bernabeu in the league, where again, 3 mistakes, he cost us the game pretty much. He's been kind of mid, I would say, ever since the Clasico as well. Again, playing at left back as well, which again, he can play at a good level, but it's not his natural position like it is at right back. But I still think overall he was a good signing. I remember the time in January when he was injured, everyone was so disappointed, so sad. I think he was injured for the Super Cup final as well. I think he got injured at the Las Palmas away, first game of the year. But I think Cancelo, especially for expectations, for the performance that we did, want from a fullback, definitely overperformed. But again, not too consistent enough to really get an 8, 9 out of 10. I think 7 out of 10, 100% for the entire course of the season is definitely fair for João Cancelo. Definitely above average for the overall season for sure. Next up, number 3 is Alejandro Balde. I've given Alejandro a 6 out of 10. Look, that first half of the season, he was crap. Absolutely crap. He was so crap to the point that Xavi had to put Cancelo at left back. He was so crap to the point that if Alonso was fit, you probably would have saw Alonso a lot more frequently. He had a very, very poor start to the season. Kind of built things back up, I think, end of December, going into January. But of course, he did his hamstring at the end of January in the Copa del Rey quarterfinals and was out for the rest of the season. So only played half a season. I think for that half, he was definitely average. You could make an argument for 5 out of 10. Definitely, I think if I was going to decimals, I'd be looking at a 5.5 for Balde. Definitely cannot argue for 7. I think, to be fair to him, in that last, in January, he played all right. To be fair, I think he definitely stepped up a level from what we saw from the Balde last season. But August, September, October, November, December, he was beyond mid. Some games were all right, some games were crap, and I think most of them were a crap. So you could say a very generous average out of 10. I think that last month where he's playing well, kind of having a bit of a remontada, that's what again I'm remembering him by. But I think overall for this season, definitely without a shadow of a doubt, a 6 out of 10, an average I would say for Balde. Number 4, of course, is Ronald Araujo. I've given Araujo a 6. You could say this is harsh, but for the expectations that I have for one of the best defenders in the world, I don't think he had a good season. I think he had some great games. PSG away had a great performance. He had some good performances in some big games as well. But in some big games, he was crap. Again, PSG at home cost us the game. Super Cup final, I think he was absolutely woeful. I think he got sent off. I think he got a lot of red cards this season, Araujo as well, in big moments. Look, I think, what? If you want to really get into the nitty-gritty based on his actual performance, you could make an argument for a 7, but I have very high expectations for Araujo. Again, one of the captains of the club. He's coming to this season as one of the best center backs in the world. I think this season he's been very, very inconsistent. A very similar season to Marc-Andre ter Stegen. You can make a 10-minute compilation of him having great moments, great tackles and stuff like that, but also a 10-minute compilation of him being absolutely wank. And again, he was out for, I believe, a few months in the beginning part of the season as well. He's been having niggling knee injuries left, right, and center. I think it's been a very inconsistent season for Araujo, and for me, he will be getting a 6 out of 10. Next up, number 5 is Inigo Martinez, and I've given Inigo a 7 out of 10. I think, again, for expectation, he's coming as a 4th choice center back. He's impressed me. I remember that, 1 month spell where I think Araujo was injured, Koundé was out, where he had to come in and, start playing for a month. He really, really impressed me. Again, having that left foot at left center back gives a different, dynamic in the back line. I think he's been very, very solid option. I think based on performance and expectation, 100%, he's had a better overall season than Araujo. Yes, he's played way less than Araujo, but when he's come in, I think he's been a guarantee. I think he had I remember this one poor game he had in the second half of the season. I forget where it was. I think it was a home game to like Villarreal or Granada or something like that where he didn't play that well. I think it was against Granada at home where he didn't play well. Apart from that, I think he's been, very, very solid for the duration of the time that he's come in the back line. And very impressed with him this season. I came in this season, he'll come in. He'll probably be maybe a squad player, but he's been called upon quite a bit. And I think he's played quite all right. So I have given him a 7 out of 10 for the whole entire season. Next up, number 6. It's Pablo Xavi. Of course, we haven't seen him since end of November. He's been out for the entire season with an ACL and a meniscus rupture. But for the first 3 months, he was probably our best player. So I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10. I thought he was absolutely sublime. He was the heart and soul of that team. Really not much to be said. You could even argue for his 2-3 months. You could have, even given him a 9. I don't think you could have given him a 10 for sure, but imagine what happened if he would have played and been available this whole entire season. I think Barcelona's results would have been different, and he could be here sitting with a 9, maybe even a 10 out of 10. He was absolutely sublime in that first few months. Every single starting lineup, every single game, he was the center of Barcelona, and losing him, of course, especially during international duty, was a big hit. But I think Pablo Xavi in that first few months was absolutely sublime, and hopefully and praying that he comes back fully recovered from that Xavi that we did see last for Barcelona. But not really much else to say. Again, his performances were fantastic and only played about 2 or 3 months of the season. Next up, Ferran Torres, number 7, and he'll be getting a 7 out of 10. I think a 7 could be, you could argue, a bit generous, but you have to remember where he was coming into the season. He was coming in as the 4th choice winger, even probably 2nd choice or 3rd choice striker as well. Came in with this, shark mentality and started off the season very well. He was getting a lot of goals, very important goals. I remember the goal against Porto away in the Champions League at the El Drago Stadium. Big result for Barcelona at the time. Then, of course, once December hits and the crunch time of the season comes in, he's getting these niggling injuries. I think he was out for a few weeks and he came back. He was out for 2. I think he got injured in February. Was out for 2 months. Never could really broke it into the first team because at that point we were really into crunch time in the season. You had to have some sort of continuity in the starting lineup. But I think for that first half of the season where we were relying on him, he's one of the main focal points up front. And again, for the expectation as well from last season, he was absolutely dreadful. I think he was a nominee for the worst player of the season for Barcelona in my last video. So, coming from that to coming to this season, he's had an improvement on a personal level. But again, for the Barcelona standard, you could maybe argue a 6 out of 10 for sure, especially for the second half of the season, him being basically non-existent, coming on a few games. I think his performances over the past 2 months, probably since he's come back from that big injury, haven't been that great. Against Almeria wasn't that great, against Sociedad, against even I don't think he even came on against Vallecano. He's been that poor. But again, we're ranking it based on expectation, how he's done when he has played. I think for the majority of the season, he has been, a solid, sturdy 7 out of 10. Next up, number 8, it is Pedri Potter. I've given Pedri a 6 out of 10. Again, this mainly comes down to his injuries and inconsistency. When Pedri plays, he's an 8 out of 10. But he doesn't play. He starts the season off injured for 2 weeks, comes back, injured for 3 months, comes back, injured for 2 weeks, comes back, injured for 2 months. I mean, I think he's played 30-40% of the season. You look at all the big games for Barcelona this season, even look at the points where we got eliminated in these 4 competition. Pedri was out injured. Look, I think, from last season, last season where he did have some injury concerns, nothing has changed. If you want to base Pedri based on just solely on the games that he played, you'd be looking at definitely a 7 out of 10, maybe an 8. But I had to bring him down already for the inconsistencies due to his injuries. I said last season, I'll say it again, that last season I gave him benefit of the doubt. But if he's injured again this season, I'm going to be really, really honing in on it, and that's what I'm doing. You cannot play 30-40% of the season and expect me to give you an above average rating. That's just not going to be the case, because I give that rating not only to continuity, not only to performances, but also to consistency, and Pedri is just consistently injured this season, and that's the reality of it. So I've given him an average 6 out of 10 based on his actual performances in games for the time that he did play. You can definitely argue 7, 8 out of 10, but again, I had to bring it down personally due to the lack of playing time at all this season, especially in key moments. Next up, number 9 is Robert Lewandowski. I've given Lewandowski a 7 out of 10, probably against the majority. First half of the season, he was absolutely a wank. I mean, bloody hell. I still remember the days in October, November. I'm thinking Victor Roque is going to come in and bench this Polish fraud. That first half of the season, he got some big goals against Alaves. I remember the comeback, probably some other ones as well. But it's what you expect from one of the best strikers in the world, earning 300,000 euros a week. But the reason why I give him a 7 out of 10 is that second half of the season, that Lewandowski remontada, credit where it's due. I think he's been the best striker in 2024 on form. He was begging in goals for fun, especially during that time when Xavi announced that he was leaving, until I would say the PSG game, the second one at the Montjuic. That kind of 2-month period, he was ridiculous. I mean, he was doing beautiful touches, getting goals. His link-up play was improving as well. And again, contrary to Pedri, where I given him, low rankings because he never played, I'm going to give that credit to Lewandowski, who's played and been available for the whole entire season. I think he had that a few weeks. I think he had a 1 month of injury. Remember when we away at Porto, he got injured. I didn't think he came back until the Clasico in October. So he's out for a few weeks, but apart from that, he's been fit at his age as well. In his position, he's been playing week in, week out. And again, that second half of the season from January until today, I think he's been, one of the best strikers in the world on form. So credit where it's due for that. I think from last season, definitely a drop ball, but I think he's definitely been above average for his expectation, and also for what we want from him on the pitch as well, in terms of hold up play, being available, playing week in, week out, where Xavi does not, trust per se Victor Roque. So definitely for me, Lewandowski will be getting a 7 out of 10. Next up, number 11. We're skipping a few numbers now. It is Raphinha. I have given Raphinha a 7 out of 10. Again, you could probably argue an 8 here. I think he's been one of our best attackers this season. He's been very consistent as well. I think, again, it comes down to his numbers at the beginning of the season. That first part of the season, he was playing very well, but wasn't getting any goals, any assists. He was so indecisive in the final third. But build-up play, connection with his teammates, being involved in the system and tactics, sublime. But just not getting involved in the final third, missing clear-cut chances, shooting when he's supposed to passing it when he's supposed to be shooting it, those kind of things. Definitely, tweak some things. Second half of the season, did very well, of course, especially during that month, that 2 months we talked about Lewandowski having great form when Xavi left to the PSG game. Raphinha as well during that time was fantastic. I think he got injured. He's had some injuries as well. I think he got injured for about a month and a half in the first half of the season, and also a month and a half in the second half of the season. I remember he got injured the same time as Raphinha. I think he was out for not for Raphinha, as Ferran. He was out for a month, but Ferran was out for about 2 months with him coming back for the PSG games and also the league games as well against Getafe and stuff like that during that kind of spell where he's been alright. I think he's had a very, very good season, especially for his standards, but again, the injury periods and also him being very indecisive in the first half of the season is what brings him down from an 8 to a 7. You can definitely argue an 8 here. I'll probably look at a 7.5 if I'm being honest, but I'd rather round it down than round it up. I just think an 8, he just hasn't really done enough for an 8 in my opinion, but you can definitely give him an 8 and I wouldn't really argue against it too much. So we're going to give Raphinha a 7 out of 10, contrary to probably people giving him, I'd say, an 8 out of 10. Next up is number 13, Iñaki Peña, and I've given Iñaki Peña a 4 out of 10. I thought he was absolutely wank. You couldn't even give him a 3 or 2, and I probably wouldn't even, disagree. I give him a 4. I think, honestly, a 4 is a bit generous. So, of course, usually for the backup goalkeeper, we usually give them an average 6 out of 10. You look at my past season review videos, all the backup goalkeepers, whether it was Neto or Iñaki Peña, they got a 6 because they never really played. So, you just give them the average 6. But Iñaki Peña got a solid 2.5, 4 months of games where he's been playing week in, week out, starting for Barcelona in league games, Super Cups, all this stuff. Kept 1 clean sheet. Made, 2 good saves off the top of my head. He was dreadful. I mean, every shot was going in. Could not command his box to save his life. His performance in the Super Cup final was absolutely disgusting. He's done enough this season for me to sell him. I know the club really want to keep him because they have other things to worry about, which again I understand. But anyone bids a couple million euros for him, and I'm taking it in a heartbeat. I thought he was crap, especially with him, given that opportunity, which maybe he didn't expect. He came in against Atletico Madrid, got a clean sheet, made a great save from Memphis Depay's free kick, and thinking, okay, he can do something here. The fall off was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, and we saw the level of the team increase when Ter Stegen came back in. We had about 6 clean sheets in a row. The defense looked more sturdy. Looked like there was a leader in the back, being vocal. Not only was Iñaki Peña crap at shot stopping, but also passing from the back was dreadful. Commanding of the box was dreadful. It felt like the teammates, the defense, wasn't even integrating him in build-up play or anything like that because they were just scared or did not trust him, and that says enough in my opinion. I thought he was absolutely dreadful. I've given him a 4 out of 10, and anyone who disagrees, you don't know ball, unfortunately. Next up is number 14, João Felix. And I've given João Felix a 7 out of 10. Again, probably a bit controversial. I think, personally, for expectations, remember, go look at my videos, transfer videos near the end of the summer transfer window. I was thinking this guy's going to be the biggest flop I've ever seen in my life. He's gotten, I think, 10 goals and 7 or 8 assists, something like that. He's had his moments this season. I think, for expectation, and especially for what he's done this season, being, always available for the majority of the season as well. Yes, not being picked here and there, but for the games he's played, always being available, expectations, I've given him a 7 out of 10. He's had some big moments this season. I can think of, the game against Betis, the game against Antwerp, the 2 games against Atletico Madrid, the goal versus Betis in the league. He's had some big moments this season, and that's what he is. He's a big moments player, but again, big moments don't come around too often. All the other games, he's been quite mid. I think, there's been some games where he starts and doesn't play well. There's been some games where he came off the bench and, had some sort of an impact, looked alright, great build-up play. Remember when he came off the bench in the Super Cup against Osasuna in the semi-final, had some great link-up play for the Lamine Yamal goal to make it 2-0. I think, for, the deal that we got for him, a loan and no wages, the quality of player, I would, borderline give it a 7 out of 10. I'm not saying he was a solid 7 out of 10. I think, Raphinha had a better season. He got a 7 out of 10. I think Lewandowski had a better season. He also got a 7 out of 10. Very on the low echelon of a 7 out of 10. But I think, for expectations for what he's done, I think you gotta give credit where it's due. Of course, whether keeping him or not, continuity and whether he's good enough is a different story. But I think off the bench, his role this season, I think he's taken it very well. He started some big moments. Again, I think getting a goal against Atletico Madrid twice is not easy as well, especially after doing it the first time. So I think overall he's had a alright season for Barcelona, especially with the expectations we had at the beginning of the summer. And I think 7 out of 10 is a very fair rating for him. Next up, number 15 is Andreas Christensen. I've also given Christensen a 7 out of 10. Yet again, a solid, sturdy season from Andreas. Again, he had a few injury issues as well. We missed him a lot during those moments. Changed his whole position in February as well, from a center back to a pivot. He's adapted the pivot role very, very well in the games that he go in the Champions League, in the big moments where we know we couldn't rely on him. We missed him. But I do want to highlight as well continuity for him as well. 1 minute he's never completed a game this season. I don't think he starts a game that gets chopped up at halftime. I don't know, he's having stomach issues or the flu or stuff like that. Those kind of issues were very annoying, especially in key moments of the season. But he's just such a reliable player in any position that you play him in. He's been so solid. I wouldn't say he's over surprised me per se. I think he kind of performed at the level that I did expect from him. But the fact that he did that for the entirety of the season, always being available, so to speak, at least 45 minutes, whether he starts the game or comes off the bench. Again, you can make of that as you will, but I think he's been a very sturdy player this season, and someone to rely upon, and a player that we always also miss a lot in those big moments as well. So solid 7 out of 10 for Christensen, in my opinion. Next up, number 16, who was not number 16 until beginning of February, and that is Fermin Lopez. And I've given Fermin Lopez an 8 out of 10. I think, again, for expectation for what he's done in his role this season, he's been nothing short of fantastic. 10 goals from midfield. He's got more goals than some of our attackers, for crying out loud. Again, begin the season, we didn't even know who he was. He starts impressing Barcelona in the training sessions for preseason, gets a goal against Real Madrid in the Clasico for preseason. You're like, alright, we'll keep him in the first team. Let's see what he's got. Gets goals against Shakhtar. He gets goals in the Clasico again this season as well. A lot of big goals off the bench when we needed it. He's just been so good. I think he brings that different dynamism in the midfield, and especially with the loss of Xavi, I think he's definitely taken advantage, of course, when the moment was given to him. You talked about Felix, getting the big chances in big games where, sometimes he's played well, sometimes he just doesn't. Fermin Lopez always took that opportunity. Xavi always, benched him afterwards because another player from the first team was fit, and, for example, like Christensen was fit. He comes back, and Fermin has to drop out per se. He's been sublime, especially for what we thought about him at the beginning of the season. Oh, another young talent. Let's see if he can cook. Is he another Carlos Alenia? Is he another Ricky Puig? Is he Elias Moriba? He's exceeded all of them, especially, again, with his impact off the bench, starting in games as well. Remember when he started against Napoli? That was a big, call from Xavi at the time. Worked out to pure perfection. I think he's had an absolutely brilliant season, not only on the pitch and performance-wise, but also for expectations as well. Continuity as well. I think he's one of the few players that was barely injured during this season as well. So definitely, without a doubt for me, an 8 out of 10. Next up, here's a big drop-off. Number 17, Marcos Alonso. I mean, is there anything really to say? He's been injured for about, 80% of the season, and that 20% that he played, he was wank. I mean, the Villarreal away game still gives me nightmares. That cameo against Celta Vigo, where we need a miracle comeback to win the game, still gives me nightmares. Apart from that, he hasn't played. Even the game that he played a month ago, who was it? Cadiz away, where we had the break between the PSG games. Wank. I'm surprised we survived. And if he played against a decent team against that day, he would have gotten absolutely cooked. Again, now the level of Barcelona, I think the worst decision that Joan Laporta has made in his second term as president was approve and sign off on a renewal. I think Xavi's worst decision was bringing in Alonso when he begged for him 2 summers ago. He's just been wank. But he isn't the worst player, because number 18, Oriol Romeu, gets a 1 out of 10 from me. You're probably wondering, Barca boy, why have you given him a 1 instead of not giving him the same rating as Alonso, because they kind of both been equally as shite. I've given a 1 for Romeu because expectations and availability. Alonso has been out for the whole entire season, so maybe he could have played, had a great game. Maybe Xavi would have played him at DM, and he could have worked out. I don't know, something like that. Romeu has been available for the whole entire season, and expectations were high especially during preseason. Let's now have a 5-minute silence for preseason Romeu. We all knew during that we were on the hype. 3 million euros for a Busquets substitute. Brilliant business. He put in a masterclass against Madrid in the preseason. Start of the season. Oh my god. He might be a worse served, that's a word, signing than Alonso. I have never seen a player drop off be this big, and also how brain dead he is. I remember Xavi starting him in a game, I think in the cup. Was it like Linares or Unionistas? My god. He barely survived against a third division team for Barcelona in the pivot. It's not like he's playing center back or left wing. Oh my god. I think the worst player for Barcelona this season, here's a hint for you. It's this man based on his rating. He was available for the whole season. Expectations were, not high, but decent. The drop-off is, I think this is the biggest drop-off I've ever seen from a player for Barcelona in my life. 1 out of 10 for this bald fraud who absolutely finessed us. Anyways, number 19, Victor Roque. I've given Victor Roque a 6 out of 10. Again, he's barely played. He came in during that January period, got a goal against Osasuna, got a goal against Deportivo Alaves. You're thinking, all right, he's got a little opportunity here, gets a red card. We haven't seen him since. I think he's had like what? 5 cameos off the bench for like 10 minutes since then. Started the game against Cadiz, got an hour. Thought he was alright in the game, but again, you had to give him an average score because he just barely played. You can't even really assess him. He's a very raw talent. I think it's quite clear from his cameo against Rayo Vallecano last week that he's still very raw. He's still getting used to the atmosphere, the culture, the style, the differential between the Brazilian league and top league like La Liga. But a talent is definitely there. I fully back the ability of Victor Roque, but again, we just haven't really seen it. Again, he had his moment against Osasuna, which was great. Then against Alaves, but just that red card just absolutely killed him. If he didn't have that red card, scary hours. We could have seen something different. But I think, average 6 out of 10 is definitely fair for him. Next up, number 20, El Capitano, Sergi Roberto. You're probably looking at this really thinking, Barca boy, I'm going to unsubscribe, you're absolutely waffling. But let me land. I've given Roberto a 7 out of 10. Now, I've been very vocal about Roberto this season. The 2 worst performances individually from a player was not Romeu, although Romeu is definitely, a nominee. I think, personally, the worst individual performance this season was Sergi Roberto at right back. Second game, or was it third game? Third game of the season, second away game of the season against Villarreal. I have never seen a performance as bad as that. He was playing at right back, to be fair to him. The second worst performance, again at right back, Sergi Roberto, quarterfinals of the Copa del Rey against Athletic Club away at SMMS. The 2 worst performances this season have come from Roberto. Though Romeu, his performances were so bad that I don't even remember them. Those are both at right back. In the midfield this season, I think Roberto, especially for expectations that we had at the beginning of the season, he's been alright. Now, of course, he's had a lot of injuries. The thing with his injuries, they've been very niggling injuries, like out for 2 weeks, out for a week, out for a month, out for 4 days, out for 2 days, out for a week. It's not like, Pedri, where he's out for 2 months, comes back for a week, out for another 2 months. He's kind of had these niggling injuries here and there, but he's always been available in the big moments when we needed him, especially with all the injuries that we had in the midfield with Xavi and Pedri, Frankie as well. He's done alright. I mean, especially for expectations. Last season, he was a nominee for one of the worst players of the season. The goal against Almeria, coming in away at PSG, playing a great game. Away at the Metropolitan Stadium against Atletico Madrid, playing a great game. Coming off the bench, getting the assist against Napoli for the Lewandowski goal. I think he's played all right in the midfield this season, especially from January until now. I think in the midfield he's been not guaranteed, but he's been kind of like Christensen, where he's been reliable. I don't think, yes, he made a mistake against Girona, but that was just one mistake. I think before that mistake against Girona, he was playing all right. Especially from right back Roberto, which we saw a lot last season. You're seeing that difference of profile and player when he plays in the midfield. I think he came into this season as 7th choice midfielder. He's been called upon quite a few times in some big moments and wasn't terrible. So I think a 7 out of 10 is very fair. You could definitely argue a 6. I would not be giving him a 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1. I don't think he's earned that. Of course, based on individual performance, I'll give him a 0 for that game against Villarreal. But I think he's catering towards a 6 7. I personally probably give him a 6.5, but I would round it up to 7, especially for, the expectations we had for him, what he's done in those big games, especially during that February, April period as well. So 7 out of 10 for me for Capitano Roberto. I think that's overall a fair rating for him. Next up, number 21 is Frankie de Jong. I've given Frankie de Jong a 7 out of 10. You're probably wondering, 7 out of 10, oh, Pedri, you gave him a 6 because you know what, he got injured and stuff like that, and Frankie de Jong kind of had a similar story to that this season. The reason why I've given Frankie a higher ranking than Pedri's, because this is his first time having injuries during a season. The reason why I gave Pedri the low scores, because it's always the same crap, 2 months, back for 1 week, 2 months, back for 1 week. With Frankie, it was different. Brilliant start to the season. He got injured against Celta Vigo, I believe, was out for a month, came back, was playing very well. Every time he's been playing, he's been playing well. Then, of course, had that 2 ankle sprays in 2024, if I'm not mistaken. He's been riddled with injuries this season. Again, in the big moments, we couldn't really call upon him. Imagine if we did have him, I think it would be a different story. We really, really missed him. But I think, in the games that he did play this season, he played well. I remember the game in the Super Cup final. He's one of the few better players in that game for Barcelona. He's always the he's always the one player that plays well no matter what. It plays at a good standard, like an average 6 out of 10 no matter what. Never drops down to a 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1. But again, hasn't played too much this season. I think this is his first kind of injury prone season per se. Hope he comes back next year and that issue is no longer there. But I think for his performances, especially when he's even played probably more games than Pedri this season, I think 7 out of 10 is definitely a fair score for Frankie de Jong. Next up, number 22 is Ilkay Gundogan, and I've given Gundogan a 9 out of 10. I think he's had a near perfect season, debut season for Barcelona. Imagine the expectation. We're signing Ilkay Gundogan. I'm thinking, what? He'll be a good option, some squad depth in there. Can provide a rest to Frankie. Can provide different dynamism to Xavi. He wants to pick a 4 midfield per se. He started the season against Getafe, never looked back. He has been the most consistent player for Barcelona this season at a very, very high level as well. You're looking at these crappy games that we've lost or drew. He was the only player that played well. Chance creation, putting balls in the final third, controlling the tempo of the midfield, playing in different midfield positions, whether he's playing as an interior, an 8, an attacking midfielder, or a pivot. Everywhere in the midfield, he played at least, I would say, minimum 7 games, and he's played so well. In his debut season, for the expectations that I had for him, of course, I don't know if you guys, thought that Gundogan was going to come in and be a starter. I personally didn't think that. I think he could have definitely earned a spot in the starting lineup, but he came in, for competition, for experience in that midfield, which we lacked, of course, last season. He's come in. He's been absolutely phenomenal. Again, the games that he's played, I think he played like what? I remember Barcelona tweeting against Vallecano that he's played 50 games for Barcelona this season. That is nuts. That is nuts for his age as well. Bloody hell. Sublime. Absolutely sublime season from Gundogan. I think, little hint, without a doubt, one of Barcelona's better players. And I have given him a 9 out of 10 in my opinion. Now, the final first team player, number 23, Jules Koundé. I've given Koundé an 8 out of 10. I think, Koundé had for me, alongside Gundogan, has been one of our most consistent players this season. I remember that first 2 months of the season, him at right center back. Oh my goodness gracious! Was so good. That was when Cancelo, of course, was at right back. Balde was at left back. We had a bit of a balanced back line. Koundé was playing his natural position. He was absolutely fire. Got injured against, Granada. Was out for a month. Came back. He wasn't the greatest, and neither was the whole entire team. He was very inconsistent, I believe, when he came back. End of November to mid-January, he wasn't that great. But mid-January until present, he has been sensational at right back. Oh my goodness gracious. His performances, locking up wingers like Kvaratskhelia in the Champions League. He kept Ousmane Dembele and Barcola quiet when, of course, they faced up against him. League as well. Vinicius in the Clasico, he did very well against him. Vinicius only got like a penalty goal, I believe it was. Koundé had an absolute lockdown. He has been sensational. My Rolls Royce defender. Oh my god. But again, I think if he didn't have that, down period of about a month and a half, you could be looking at a 9. Genuinely. He's been that good this season in 2 very different positions for Barcelona. And again, consistency. He's playing week in, week out. Remember, from January until, I believe, the Cadiz game where he got rested, he played every single minute of every single game. And I have to go back, by the way, and mention that as well for Gundogan during that, period from January until, March, we had Champions League action. He was playing every single minute of every single game. Same thing with Koundé as well. Talk about consistency at the highest level as well. Week in, week out, every other day as well. It ain't easy, bruv. Credit where it's due to Jules Koundé. So let's now get into the B team players. We've now finished kind of the first team players officially. First up, number 27 is Lamine Yamal. I've given Lamine Yamal 8 out of 10 for a debut season, so to speak, in the first team. I think he only played like 10 minutes last season. We sold them. Balde, Raphinha wasn't, in form. Ferran Torres had the shark mentality. Whoop-de-doo. Abdi and Ansu Fati left on the last day of the transfer window. He's been sensational. I mean, at 16 years old, playing. I think he's also played over 50 games this season on off the bench, mostly starting. Kid's ridiculous. Kid is ridiculous. Again, the only thing I can really criticize him for is his decision making in the final third. But again, he's freaking 16. That will get tuned up hopefully during this summer, during the latter stage when he becomes more decisive for Spain and more important for Barcelona as well. Hopefully that will get tweaked and get fixed up. But build up play, dribbling, speed, assists, goals. Different gravy, man. Different gravy. So I think he's had overall a good season for Barcelona. A great, debut / first start of the season. And hopefully he can continue this on into bigger and better things next season. Next up, number 30 is actually the captain of the B side. It is Marc Casado. Give him an average 6. Didn't really play too much. I really don't understand why Xavi didn't give him any more chances this season. I think he came on against Atletico Madrid away. Played against Antwerp in the last Champions League game. I think he had some appearances in the Copa del Rey as well against Unionistas. And who did we play in the first round? Was it like Linares or something like that? I don't know. But didn't really play too much. But we'll give him an average 6 out of 10. I think Xavi really missed the boat on him this season. Hopefully he gets to play him more for the following seasons that are coming up. Next up, number 33, Pau Cubarsí. I mean, he did so well. He got a new contract. Tells you enough. Again, 8 out of 10 for me, especially for the fact that he did come, of course, in January until now. I think he came in against Unionistas in the round of 16 of the Copa del Rey, especially when we had some injury issues at the back. My freaking God, he is the best passer of a center back that I've seen since PK. I mean, madre mia, joder, sensational. His defensive work as well is brilliant. Very, very rapid as well. People are underrating his speed. I don't think he even had a poor game for Barcelona yet. I think he's had a few 6 out of 10s when we haven't played too well as a team. But those are average scores for him. I don't think he's been at fault for anything. I think he's been a guarantee at the back. Sensational. I think, again, with Cubarsí, you could have given him a 9. If he played, from the start of the season, you could be looking at a 9. Maybe even a 10 out of 10. But I think for him coming in halfway through the season as well, when he first came in, he didn't really start per se. I forget what game where Xavi just chucked him in. I think it was a few games before the first leg against Napoli. And then he started the game against Napoli at home in the Montjuic. Was unreal. Got man of the match. And he was a starter ever since. So, brilliant story for him. Cannot wait to see him under the start, for a full season as a first team player next season from the start, from August until, June. So, can't wait to see more from him. Next up, number 38 is Marc Guiu. I've given Marc Guiu a 7 out of 10. You're probably thinking, oh, Barca boy, you're biased. You're giving Victor Roque a 6, but Guiu a 7. Why is that the case? Mainly because, again, for expectations. Remember, when Victor Roque came in, we all said it in October, November. Not just me. Everyone said this. He was going to bench Lewandowski. So, the expectations for Victor Roque were all the way up here. With Guiu, he's got to come out of nowhere. Got that big goal against Athletic Club in the league. He then started a home match. I forget who it was against in that first hour, where it was kind of surprising that he started ahead of Victor Roque. Played really well. I think, again, the expectation was that I didn't even hear about him beforehand. I think I only heard about him when he was called to the bench after we had all that injury issues in the attack in that first 2 months of the season. I think, for expectation, I would give him a bit of a nod ahead of Victor Roque. I'll probably give, if we're going for like decimals, I'll probably give Victor Roque like a 6.2 and then Guiu like a 6.7-ish. So they're not really separated by too much, but I think, of course, Guiu being there for the whole entire season as well. And, not knowing about him as well for expectations, where Victor Roque, we're all thinking like, bloody hell, this man actually might come in and bench Lewandowski. But Guiu, good season for him, and we'll see what happens for him this summer, whether he stays or he gets loaned out. But again, I think he's had a very good, debut season per se for Barcelona. And last but not the least is number 39, and that is Hector Fort. I've given Hector Fort a 7 out of 10. You could be looking at an 8 for Hector Fort when he's played. I think he's been one of the most impressive youngsters I've seen. Our right back, only playing at left back, but when he played at left back, sensational. In big games as well. I remember him starting against Athletic Club in the quarterfinals of the Copa del Rey. Brilliant. Pocketed both Enaki and Nico Williams because they were switching wings because they couldn't deal with him. Sublime. Starting away at the Metropolitan Stadium against Atletico Madrid. Sublime. I don't know why Xavi didn't use him more often. I think he had that one poor game at home that kind of maybe threw off Xavi. I forget who it was against. I remember Xavi bringing on Cancelo at halftime. He didn't really have a good game. I think it was like against like Osasuna. I think it was against Osasuna where Victor Roque came in and scored the goal. He wasn't really that bad, but I think he was, a bit under average. But I think that kind of hurt Xavi's trust in him maybe per se a little bit. But my God, he's had a brilliant season. I cannot wait for him to be at Barcelona next season. Of course, he renewed his contract. He's going to be now officially the backup for Balde next season at left back, even though he's a right back. So I think he's been sensational. I think him and Kubarsi have been like the two players that really, got my eyes wide open and impressed me. Because Lamine Yamal has always been hype around him since he was young as well. But Hector Fort and Kubarsi have been sensational. So I would give him definitely 7 out of 10. Again, you could have given him an 8 based on his performances, but I give him a 7 because again he's played way less games than Kubarsi's 8, per se. But definitely a strong season from Hector Fort. Next up, we do have the manager rating of the season for Xavi Hernandez, and I've given Xavi for the whole entire season a 7 out of 10. You're probably thinking, Barca boy, what are you smoking? Giving him above average in a trophyless season. But again, I want to highlight what I've been saying for the whole entire season. I think this whole entire failure of a season per se has not been on the fault of Xavi. I think it's gonna come down more so to the players not performing, making individual mistakes, and getting capitalized on them, consistently. I think Xavi, from a tactical point of view, from team selections and team decisions, he's been at a good steady pace. I don't think he's been very poor. I don't think he's been absolutely, of course, sublime. I think the only game that he cost us this season, based on his tactic and decision, was the Super Cup final against Real Madrid in January, where we got clapped 4-1. He didn't play the best of starting lineups, played a high line against Vinicius and Rodrigo, got absolutely cooked. Apart from that, I think, you can go look at all the lineups every time they've come out, and tactical decision-wise, everyone was happy for every single lineup this season. When he's maybe Lamine Yamal the past month, where he's been overplaying him, that was of course questionable. But you go look at the match reviews for the PSG games, Napoli games, the Real Madrid game, Atletico Madrid game, whatever big game you want to look at. Everyone was happy with his lineup selection, the way he set up the team has always been good, maybe even damn near perfect. But again, it's the players that make the mistakes. Look at all the key turning points this season. Losing the cup final, Super Cup, that was on him, of course. Getting knocked out of the quarterfinals, that was on the players. Getting knocked out of the Champions League, that was on the players. Losing the league, that was on the players making mistakes. And then the worst part is not the players making the mistake, but the players, the opponent team capitalizing on every single mistake we've made. So I think that's where I kind of rate Xavi's season. I don't think he's done really anything wrong. Of course, what he's had to deal with as well, leaving and then coming back, and then leaving again, coming back, leaving. I mean, his whole entire thing has just been bouncing like a freaking yo-yo. But I think overall for the season, with the drama that comes with it, expectations as well, like he always mentioned in press conferences, that he thinks that Barcelona this season had performed better than last season, just that this season we've made more individual mistakes, and the mistakes have been capitalized by our opponents as well. So I think overall, I'd probably even give it, decimal-wise 6.5, but I would round it personally to 7 out of 10. And the final rating that we do have is the overall team performance rating of the season, judging the team based on how he played consistently for the whole entire year. I'm giving the team a 3 out of 10. I mean, it's been absolutely shite. Even though I just mentioned that Xavi thinks that Barcelona this season have played better than we did last season, the outcomes were just too shite to even give that any credit. I mean, there were games where I'm thinking I want this game to end so I can stop watching Barcelona. Last season, I'm thinking, I want this game to never stop, even though we're probably winning 1-0, but we're dominating the team. We're just not finishing our chances. We're playing great. This season has been the complete opposite. I mean, when we get into the awards, I had, difficulties and struggles picking, the best game of the season and stuff like that, because they've been non-existent this season. I think the team has capitulated and crumbled in big moments this season as well. The PSG game, they bottled it. Away to Copa del Rey, bottled it. League matches this season, bottled it. I'm thinking the Villarreal game, the Granada game. Like, if you win these games, you're probably like 2 points off Real Madrid. You put pressure on them, then you win the Clasico, different story. Then maybe you're not in the title race. There's so many. Again, I do blame a lot this season on the players themselves, whether they perform well, they make individual mistakes. That all comes into consideration for a team performance. At the end of the day, they are a team. If Araujo makes a mistake week in, week out, we lose every single game, they still go down as a team. They win as a team, they fight as a team, they lose as a team, and they take criticism as a team as well. And for me, it's been one of the worst I've seen. Definitely a 3 out of 10. Let's now get into the season award ceremony for Barcelona for the 23-24 season. We have our usual awards. We're going to have our nominees, of course, and I will announce my winners. Of course, if you agree or disagree, make sure you guys drop it down in the comment section below. First up, we're going to get these, out of the way as quickly as possible. First up is the worst game of the season, or worst performance for Barcelona. The nominees are the 4-1 loss in the Super Cup final, the 4-2 elimination in the Copa del Rey, the loss against PSG 4-1, and also the 4-2 Granada loss at the beginning of the season as well. For me, it's been a very easy pick. It was the 4-1 against Madrid in the Super Cup final. I think this is the worst that we played the whole entire season. Again, that mostly came down to Xavi's tactical decision. We got absolutely clapped for about an hour of the game, and then by then Madrid were 3-1 up. We were not getting back into the game because the defense was so strong. They didn't dominate us for a full 90 minutes per se, but that hour they absolutely killed us. In the end, we couldn't really come back into it. They hit us on the counterattack and made it 4-1. But that game, you just felt like Barcelona were absolutely dead on the floor. Even for that, half an hour spell where, Madrid weren't dominating, we weren't doing anything going forward either. We were kind of staying alive. I don't know, red card, put the nail in the coffin. So this by far for me was the worst performance of the season, when last season this was our best performance of the season. So you'll see the drop off. Next up is the best game of the season for Barcelona. The nominees are the 5-0 win against Antwerp, the 5-0 win against Betis, the 3-0 win against Atletico Madrid away, and the 4-0 win against Getafe at home. And for me personally, the best game of the season was away at the Metropolitan Stadium against Atletico Madrid, where we did win 3-0. I think we absolutely clapped Atletico Madrid for the entirety of the 90 minutes. It could have been more as well. We missed so many clear-cut chances. I kind of picked this game mainly because it was a bigger game as well. Antwerp, Betis, and Getafe don't really float my boat per se. But I think definitely this game was a game where I felt like we were on top of the world. We were absolutely destroying Madrid, Atletico, should I say, in their stadium as well, with the players we did have. Hector Fort starting, Fermin Lopez in the team, a very young team, performing against a very strong Atletico Madrid at the time. I think they were ahead of us in the league table during that moment. So it was a big result for Barcelona at the time, and also a big win, and for me, the best result and performance of the season. Let's now get into some of these awards, the really good ones. First up, we do have the best defender of the year. The nominee, or season, should I say. The nominees are Jules Koundé, Inigo Martinez, Pau Cubarsí, and Andreas Christensen. Based on the player ratings, of course, the winner is going to be Jules Koundé. I think he was the most consistent defender for Barcelona the whole entire year. Pau Cubarsí definitely could have given him a run in if he played the whole entire year. But, Koundé has a whole entire half of the season ahead of Cubarsí. You can't just ignore that, first 3 months at right center back. Oh, God have mercy on my soul. Sensational. My Rolls Royce defender. Absolutely brilliant from him. Consistency wise. Again, he had that poor month where everyone was just poor, not even just him. If he was just him himself, maybe that could maybe affect his, rating and my outlook on him. But sublime from Jules Koundé this season. Next up is the best midfielder of the season. The nominees are Fermin Lopez, Frankie de Jong, Ilkay Gundogan, and freaking Xavi. I mean, just shows how good Xavi was for that 2 months that he is a nominee for the best midfielder of the season come the end. Says enough. But the winner is, of course, as you expected, Ilkay Gundogan. Again, he's been absolutely sensational in the midfield, very similar to Jules Koundé, the most consistent player in the midfield, most consistent performer in the midfield in different positions in the midfield as well. Never really put a foot wrong, I would say. And again, in a lot of games, he really carried us in transition. He was just fantastic. I'm running out of words to give to Koundé and Gundogan, if I'm being honest. But I think Gundogan, again, definitely deserving of this award. Next up is the best attacker of the season. The nominees are Robert Lewandowski, Joao Felix, Raphinha, and Lamine Yamal. This might come as a shock, per se. Basically, you're looking at these players on paper, but if you know the player ratings, you probably already know the answers right now. And for me, I'm giving it to Lamine Yamal. I think, you know what, the consistency that he's had for the whole entire season as well. Felix kind of had his moments here and there. Raphinha had a good spell in the second half. Lewandowski had a good spell in the second half. But from August until today, Lamine Yamal was always the one that was there, no matter what, consistently performing. I remember the games, early on in the season when Lewandowski was shite, Raphinha was not scoring, and it was Lamine Yamal carrying the team, giving us the excitement, getting us off our seats, watching the game. He's been absolutely sensational, especially for the standard and expectations we did have for him at the beginning of the season. We think, he might have some good performances, good cameo. Let's nurture him. He's become an undisputed starter to the point that he's starting games week in, week out, and that worries us because, injury issues and, overplaying him. He's been that good. I think giving it to anyone else, if we're just judging maybe from January until today, you could maybe make a great argument for Raphinha and Lewandowski, but for the whole course of the season, for me, it has to be Lamine Yamal. Next up, we have the best Spanish player of the year. Of course, we are a Spanish club, so we should be probably having this award a little bit. It's going to be a little, biased per se. The nominees are Xavi again, Paul Cubarsí, Fermin Lopez, and Lamine Yamal. So we have one first team. So one of these players were in the first team come August. Two of them are still not in the first team. So tells you enough of the Spanish standard for Barcelona this season. But for me, the winner is Fermin Lopez. I think, again, consistency-wise, if Paul Cubarsí was playing from August until, today, different story. You could have a different argument. But again, Fermin Lopez was there from the beginning. Had a lot of big moments at the start of the season as well. Again, the goal against Madrid in the Clásico, goals against Shakhtar in the Champions League. Him starting the Clásico. Remember the October Clásico, he was starting when we had the Rolling Stone logo. He played a great game as well with, I think, alongside Xavi in the midfield for the whole entire season. I think he's definitely been the best Spanish player for Barcelona this season. Next up is the best La Masia player for Barcelona. The nominees are Marc Guiu, Lamine Yamal, Paul Cubarsí, and Fermin Lopez. Now, on paper, of course, Fermin Lopez and Lamine Yamal are B team players. Of course, Fermin Lopez was promoted. Lamine Yamal is still a B team player, but has been part of the first team for the whole entire season. So I've kind of, process of elimination, giving it to Paul Cubarsí because, again, Lamine Yamal was with the first team. Fermin Lopez were the first with the first team for the whole entire year. He's only coming in January. Of course, Guiu doesn't really compete with any of those other three. He's kind of, the best of the rest per se. But again, coming straight from the academy, making the journey. Remember, he started with Barca Athletic during this season as well. Played a little bit with the juvenile A side, I think, in the Champions League and the cadet team. And then, of course, got the opportunity in the first team and took it. So I think from the roots of La Masia, from going through the process this season, of course, for me, it has to go to Pau Cubarsí. Next up is the surprise of the season, the surprising the most per se. Nominees are Ilkay Gundogan, Lamine Yamal, Fermin Lopez. Yeah, I'm just spamming Fermin Lopez, Cubarsí, Lamine Yamal in these nominees because they're the only really bright lights of this season. But for me, the most surprising player, without a shadow of a doubt, has been Fermin Lopez again. Of course, with Lamine Yamal, there's always a hype around him. With Paul Cubarsí as well, honestly, there's always been that hype around him. He's kind of the best center back in the B division. Any injuries, he'll be the first name called up because people were thinking at the time, why is it not McBack or McAlfay, getting that nod in the first team ahead of Cubarsí, but Cubarsí was just head and shoulders better than them. Of course, Gundogan just won the freaking treble as the captain with Man City, so he wasn't really surprised per se, but I think he's a surprise in more so the sense of the continuity, the consistency during the season. But Fermin Lopez, no one heard of him beforehand. He got a little goal against Real Madrid, and he's absolutely taking his chances beyond belief. He's, for me, has been without a shadow of a doubt the surprise package of the season. Next up is the best under 23 player of the year. The nominees are, again, Paul Cubarsí, Fermin Lopez, Lamine Yamal, and Xavi. I mean, these awards and nominees just show how shite Barcelona have been this season. And again, for me, I'm going to be giving it to Lamine Yamal again for the entirety of the season, of course, based on the player ratings as well. To be fair, Cubarsí, Lamine Yamal, and Fermin all got 8 out of 10s. But I think, again, with Lamine Yamal being there, always being a starter for the whole entire year, essentially, you've got to give it to him, in my opinion. I think he's been the best under 23 player. He's probably fucking, under 17 player as well, which is absolutely crazy. Of course, Xavi could have done, probably would have gotten it if he did play the whole entire season, but we're going to give it to Lamine Yamal. Now we're into the final two, the two big awards. First up, the worst player of the year. The 3 nominees are clear. It is Romeo, Alonso, and Inaki Peña, and you already know who the answer is. It is this bald fraud, Romeo, the worst Barcelona player for the duration of the season without a shadow of a doubt. Enough said. finally, the best Barcelona player this season. The nominees are Ilkay Gundogan, Lamine Yamal, Paul Barca. I should have put Fermin Lopez in here. I would have gotten the trend by putting Xavi in there because, again, for that 2-3 month period, Xavi was remarkable, absolutely remarkable. But again, the fact that Kubarsi's in here, it's only coming in January. The fact that Lamine Yamal is here, only being 16. You could have honestly put Fermin Lopez in here. I wouldn't have disagreed. Knowing this, if I was really clocking this trend, I would have put Fermin Lopez in here. But I think the winner is clear. It is Ilkay Gundogan. He's been our best, most consistent player for the whole entirety of the season. Of course, Koundé had that kind of 1 month where he was poor. Gundogan wasn't poor in that month. I think, if Koundé had a really good, did well during that month, probably would have chucked him in as a nominee for sure. But I think Gundogan, without a shadow of a doubt, has been Barcelona's best player this season. From August until end of May, he's been consistently minimum 7, 6 out of 10 week in, week out. Maybe 6 out of 10 because the whole entire team was just shite. But when we were playing at least semi-decent or alright, he was a 7 out of 10. Absolutely brilliant. Free signing as well. One of the best signings I've seen Barcelona make for the effectiveness and for the operation as well. He's been sensational and very excited to see him next season, especially with the whole entire season already integrated with Barcelona as well. But without a shadow of a doubt, the best Barcelona player for the 23-24 season is Ilkay Gundogan. So overall, final thoughts on Barcelona's 23-24 season, a season of disappointment and a season of letdown. This is definitely top 3 worst seasons I've witnessed as a Barcelona fan. Of course, 2 seasons out of the past 3 now have been trophyless. This team, there was not a lot of expectation, but there was, a solid amount of confidence that this team would at least go out and win a trophy, at least one out of the Super Cup, Copa del Rey, Champions League, and La Liga, coming off the back of a double as well, where you said, okay, the level will maybe increase, if not bare minimum, stay the same, and a drop down beyond belief. We had really no good moments this season as well. If you look at the nominees for the best games this season, they all came in that first month of the season. And we've had a lot of lows this season as well. We've had a lot of pain and suffering this season, not only with the players, the situation on the pitch, but also off the pitch as well. Transfer market in January, we didn't really capitalize on it with, only bringing in Victor Roque, who we signed in January. Of course, Xavi's situation as the manager, bouncing in and out as being the manager, being not the manager. Players getting, big injuries all throughout the season. Frankie de Jong, Pedri, Xavi, Balde. Raphinha, Ferran Torres being inconsistent as well. Araujo getting niggling injuries. Their second being out for about that 3 or 4 month period. It's just been a whole entire season of shite, if we're being completely honest. Is this worse than the 1920 and 21-22 season? I don't know. There could be a debate for that. I think maybe in hindsight, I'll make that decision. But it's just been a season of absolute and pure, utter disappointment. Which doesn't mean that, anything we do next season is good. Anything we can do anything next season, win a trophy, it will be better than this season. But, I hate looking at this home kit now because, it just brings back all the memories of how poor Barcelona were this season. Of course, being in the Montjuic week as well didn't really help. It's just been a season of pure and utter disappointment. But hopefully a season of reflection, hopefully a season where we can learn and, take these moments and, rectify them for next season. But overall, little to if not none positive thoughts on this season. So that was my season review for the 2023-2024 Barcelona season. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to drop a like down below. And of course, in the comments down below as well, let me know your thoughts on the season overall for Barcelona. Any of your ratings. I know it's going to be quite difficult to put all your player ratings for the. If you want to, please feel free to go ahead. I will definitely read it and give you a comment. Your rating as the overall team performance. Your rating for Xavi this season. Also for the awards as well. Let me know if I missed any games, any nominees. Who would you give these awards to as well? Just leave me all your thoughts down in the comments below. And of course, make sure you guys subscribe down below as well if you haven't already. And I will see you guys next season for hopefully something better than this season. Hopefully miles better. Thank you guys for joining me this season. If you were out here throughout the journey or you joined midway or just subscribed as well, thank you so much for your support, and we go again next season. Take care, and as always, Visca el Barça e Visca Catalunya.